Do you believe that there's a liberal bias in the media?
No. Why? No. I think it's, I've been asked this question before. I was just asked by someone on some YouTube reporter. I think if you want to see people see what they want to see.
Hold it now.
Well, it shows you that they're the dangers of this job, and I think you're right that, so many people throw out terms about journalists and say, really derogatory things about journalists, but our jobs are very dangerous, and many times we go into a war zone. This turned into a war zone today without, anyone having to go overseas and put on flak jackets.
I've served in a war zone, and it didn't feel like this. I mean, we get threats. I got a couple of threats today, after the shooting. People saying that I don't deserve to breathe air and that why am I alive? And they send them to our newspaper and they send them to other newspapers. And that's the new reality in which we live. And honestly, Don, I have to tell you, we've joined the ranks of Russia and third world nations where reporters' lives aren't safe. And that's not right.
So in the wake of the shooting today in the newsroom of the Capital Gazette newspaper in Annapolis, Maryland, President Trump did not answer shouted questions from reporters today. Watch this.
Any words about the dead in Annapolis? Any words about the dead in Annapolis, Mr. President? Can you talk about the active shooters in Annapolis? Can you please talk to us about the dead reporters in Annapolis?
Mr. President, will you keep talking
Do you have any words of condolence for the families, Mr. President?
Why are you walking away?
So joining me now is White House correspondent Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, many times the president will come over and talk. He'll, shout some answers back. He didn't as they shouted questions, but we did hear from him today later on, correct?
John, we did. Right after this shooting happened, the president tweeted saying he had been briefed on the shooting. He was actually in Wisconsin today. Neither he nor the First Lady were here at the White House as this shooting was happening, just roughly an hour away from Washington, D.C. He said that his thoughts and prayers were the victims and their families, and he thanked the first responders who were on the scene. Two more things I'd like to note as they were flying back on Air Force One before we really knew a lot about this. One of the deputy press secretaries was briefing reporters, and a reporter said, hey, we don't know a lot about the motive of this shooting, but does this make the White House and the president at all think about his rhetoric about the media and how he constantly laments that they are fake news, the enemy of the American people? The deputy press secretary, Lindsey Walters, said no, said violence is never tolerated in any form, quote, no matter whom it is against. And then we saw a very strong statement from the press secretary, Sarah Sanders, someone who interacts with reporters on a near daily basis. She said she strongly condemned this evil act, calling it senseless. She said a violent attack on innocent journalists doing their job is an attack on every American. And then she went on to say her prayers are with the victims and their families. We did not hear from the president in person today, Don.
President Trump today defended journalists in his first comments about the Capital Gazette shooting. Listen.
This attack shocked the conscience of our nation and filled our hearts with grief. Journalists, like all Americans, should be free from the fear of being violently attacked while doing their job.
Again, Don, we are seeing this president in his short 17 months or so in office. He is going to have to confront and face another form of gun violence. It's something he's already had to face several times throughout his presidency.
Hold it now.
No matter what you think of Trump, it's pretty obvious what CNN thinks, and they'll stop at nothing to bash him. If they keep it up, they're bound to help him get reelected.
No, it's liberal media bias. Sure. Okay.
I've served in a war zone, and it didn't feel like this.